and welcome back to British English with me, Ali. In today's lesson, I'm going to talk to you about some stereotypes that many people have about British people and telling you whether they are fact or fiction. For those of you who aren't quite sure, a stereotype is a common belief about a nation or a type of person, which can sometimes be accurate, but more often than not is just a broad generalization that doesn't hold so much truth. All of these things I've heard, not just personally, but also more generally discussed about British people, and I want to tell you my personal opinion as to whether these are true or not. Please leave a comment in the comment section below about any of these points that I mentioned today, and let's get started. So a common thing that I hear is that in Britain it rains all the time. Being from Wales myself, I will say that yes, it is a very, very rainy country. However, it's not always raining, and when the sun comes out, it is truly beautiful in the UK. We have so many fields and so much greenery. We also have so many beaches, being an island, and exploring Britain is so beautiful when the sun is shining, which it does. Recently, more so. There's been several heat waves in the UK over the past few years, to the point that in our un-air-conditioned houses, we are starting to have to consider aircon, which isn't something that we used before. Traditionally, we have radiators located on walls throughout homes, and this radiates heat out, but it's not so good with radiating out cold. On this topic though, another stereotype is that British people love to talk about the weather, and this most certainly is accurate. Yes, we love to talk about the weather, and I noticed here in Japan too that weather is a hot topic. I've analysed this, and I think it's down to the fact that both countries have very changeable seasons. So we might have freezing cold, snowy winters, but beautiful sunny summers. It's also very useful when you want to make small talk or you don't really have so much to say to the other person. Another stereotype is that British people drink lots of tea. This one is both true and not true. So yes, we are a tea nation, and boiling the kettle and inviting someone for a cuppa is something that most households will probably do. However, in more recent years, the Italian and French influence of coffee has certainly come into Britain, and now it's, I suppose, a little bit more trendy to go for a coffee, to meet your friend for a coffee or to go to an independent cafe. Also, the influx of Costa Coffee or Starbucks, these also encourage our coffee drinking tendencies. Another thing connected to tea is the idea of afternoon tea. I often get asked, do I take tea at 3:30 in the afternoon, as may be seen in films. I don't drink tea so much anymore. The types of tea I drink are probably either herbal or the Japanese varieties such as oolong tea or green tea. I'm not a huge tea drinker. I think I've had about 2 cups of tea this year. My preference is probably coffee. So sorry to break any of your ideas that we all drink tea. And again, just like in any country, I think some people love tea, some people sometimes drink tea, some people don't like tea. You know, it's very varied from person to person. But what I will say is that if someone says that they don't like hot drinks, it's a little bit of a shock for a British person. It's sort of like, how can you not like hot drinks? So yeah, deep in our souls, we want to drink coffee or tea or some kind of hot beverage so that we can connect with the person that we are drinking tea or coffee with, or just for a little moment for ourselves. On many occasions, people have asked me, Do you use an umbrella in the rain? And this question surprised me, but it seems that many people believe that British people don't really care about getting wet in the rain. I would say that this is fiction. This is not true that we don't use umbrellas. We certainly do use umbrellas. We don't use parasols. We don't protect our skin from the sun as much as in Japan, but we do use umbrellas against the rain. I would say that I have one friend who doesn't like umbrellas, and so in the rainy weather, she'll just use a hood. But I'd say that's not really the standard way. What could be true is that we're less sensitive to the rain. So if there's just a small drizzle, maybe we won't bother to put our umbrella up. But personally for me, I don't like to get wet in the rain, so I will use an umbrella. This next one was something that I feel quite passionate about. Many people ask me, what do people eat in the UK? And there is an underlying belief that British food is bad. Now, I would say that British food falls into two categories. One would be traditional British food, and the other is more fusion from other countries' dishes and recipes. So talking about British food just in short, I have made another video on a more extensive explanation of what British people eat, so please do check that. The link will be up here. But for now, I'm just going to say that traditional British food is cooked using an oven, and it's very, very difficult unless you burn this. It's difficult to do a bad job with something in the oven. You literally just put a piece of meat, some vegetables, usually about 2, and some roast potatoes, and this is your dish. Similarly, we make pasties or sort of pies, and again, this is often meat with some sort of sauce and vegetables with a lid of pastry on the top. And in those colder winter months, this kind of dish is really fantastic. You know, the smell is wonderful and it's very warming for your body and your mind. The other type of food that we tend to eat in the UK are taken from other countries. So it's very, very easy to find Chinese food, Japanese food, Italian food, French food. We are definitely very interested in exploring other countries' cuisines, and I think this is probably due to the fact that we have so many people from different countries living in the UK. If you go to London, it's very standard to hear not just English, but Spanish, Portuguese, French, Chinese, Japanese, so many different languages because we have so many people from different areas of the world. So the food is reflecting this situation, and I would say that you can easily go for a month in the UK without eating a traditional roast dinner or fish and chips. This leads me on to the next point. Do we eat fish and chips? I think I've eaten fish and chips about 5 to 10 times in my whole life. I am someone who I enjoy fish and I enjoy potatoes, but I wouldn't say this type of dish is my personal taste. It has a negative reputation, but there's something very comforting about these big fat chips covered in salt and vinegar, and then this fish, which is very soft in the inside but crispy on the outside. Fish and chips may have a bad reputation, but I would liken it to standard potato chips and then a tempura type of fish. It is very greasy and very heavy, but I think when enjoyed once in a while, it is actually a really comforting and British experience to have. I would recommend trying fish and chips not in a pub, but instead in a fish and chip shop. This is going to give you the real experience, and more often than not, the fish and chippy will wrap it up in a newspaper and give it to you for you to enjoy either on the beach or in your own home. There's something really magical about having a day playing on the beach and getting exhausted by the sea and the sand, and then sitting at the end of the day with your fish and chips, just regaining your energy. The last point I'd like to make is about warm pints of beer. But I wouldn't say this is strictly true. If you go to what we call an old man's pub, there may be less sensitivity to the exact temperature of the beer. In this kind of situation, yes, your beer may not be ice cold. But I would say in more stylish bars or restaurants, the beer is probably going to be much cooler than you may expect. In Japan, I noticed that temperature is really, really important, especially cooler temperatures when it comes to alcoholic beverages. But perhaps we're not so sensitive in the UK about the exact temperature of our beer. On the topic of temperature and alcohol though, I will say that we certainly do not refrigerate our red wine. This can even be warmed, and ideally we want to drink it at around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. Thank you so much for listening to these stereotypes about British people today. Please leave your comments below, and until next time, bye bye.